Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to dive into a heartfelt story about Alex and Tu Na, a tale of love, sacrifice, and the courage to speak what's been left unspoken. From moments of fear inside the hospital to the quiet beauty of life on the farm, this journey will show us how fragile yet powerful love can truly be. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters. The late afternoon sun poured gold across the farmland, warming the young rows of vegetables until they seemed to glow. Tu Na stood at the garden's edge, her fingertips brushing tender leaves like she was greeting old friends. The smell of earth after a long day of work rose all around her, blended with the faint sweetness of fruit just beginning to ripen. This wasn't a visit. She had come home to stay. It wasn't a sudden decision. It was the quiet conclusion of years of wandering, the moment her heart finally settled. "I'll never leave the farm again," she told Alex that very morning, her voice steady, carrying the calm finality of a promise etched deep in her soul. For her, the farm was not just soil. It was the ground where her heart had finally learned to breathe again. Alex hadn't asked for explanations. He'd only smiled, a quiet curve of relief on his lips. And in that silence, guilt had stirred in Tu Na's chest. She remembered the days her absence had hollowed him out, the weight he bore silently, without complaint. Now she wanted to replace those shadows with light. She moved slowly between the rows, pulling weeds with unhurried steps, feeling the soil cling to her hands, as if every touch stitched her back into this place, into a life that was steady, unpretentious, whole. Here there was rhythm. The morning crow of roosters, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the subtle scent of rain before it fell. No city could give her this. Above all, there was Alex, and though she never said it aloud, she knew the truth. Staying here was not only about the farm, it was about him. For Alex, the memory still returned in broken pieces. The sterile sting of hospital corridors, the hollow tick of a wall clock that grew louder than his own heart. Tu Na, lying pale under harsh white light, her breath faint, one hand resting over the fragile swell of new life inside her. That was when the doctor pulled him aside. His voice was calm, but the words cut deeper than a blade. "You must choose. Save the mother or save the child." Alex's world shrank into that one sentence. His knees buckled, the floor cold beneath him, as he begged, "Please, there has to be a way to save them both." His voice cracked, but in his eyes burned a desperate defiance, a refusal to accept such cruelty. The doctor hesitated, then finally offered the thinnest strand of hope. "If we wait, if her body can hold just long enough, there may be a chance to save them both, but it's dangerous. You must prepare for either ending." And so began the longest weeks of Alex's life. Days turned into vigils, nights into wordless prayers. He sat beside her, speaking softly when she stirred, holding her hand as if even the air might wound her. Until at last, the day arrived. The operating room doors swung shut, swallowing her from his sight. Hours crawled by, and then the doors opened, and the doctor's tired smile said everything. Against all odds, both Tu Na and the child had been saved. Alex never forgot the weight of that miracle, nor the vow he made in the silence of his own heart. If life had given him both back, he would never waste another chance. Morning mist still clung to the hills when Tu Na stepped into the garden, a woven basket pressed to her hip. Dew gathered on her fingertips as she passed rows of tender greens. She knelt, tugging at stubborn weeds, the earthy scent rising with each pull. By mid-morning, she was walking through the orchard with Miss Lan, the two women pausing beneath heavy grapefruit trees. Pale fruit hung low, beads of moisture shimmering like lanterns. Their voices were low, trading the quiet language of growers, a conversation about color, sweetness, weight. Too sour, Miss Lan would remark, turning a fruit slowly in her palm. Tu Na nodded, already planning. More organic fertilizer, a little more time under the sun, just enough potassium to draw out sweetness. Beyond them stretched the rows of Buddha's hand trees. Some fruits already glowed yellow, ready for careful hands. Others clung to green promise, not yet ripe. The air grew thick with citrus fragrance. Tu Na paused, closed her eyes, and let the scent fill her chest. Here, among trees and earth, her life was no longer measured in hours or days. It was measured in seasons. She had stopped counting how much time remained. She was learning to count what each day gave her. The afternoon sun burned heavy in the courtyard when Alex arrived with Johnny. Dust clung to their shoes, the smell of sun-baked earth following them. Tu Na crouched by the chicken coop, a hammer in her hand, her hair tied loosely back, a few strands catching the light like threads of gold. She looked up as their steps drew near. "You're here," she said, setting the hammer down. Her tone was steady, but in her eyes flickered a distance, the fragile space between past and present. Johnny shifted uneasily. "I wanted to see you, and there's something I need to say." They sat at the wooden table, cicadas buzzing in the silence between words. He confessed. About the test. About how he and Alex had kept it from her, thinking they were protecting her. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Not of your reaction, but of losing you." The silence that followed wasn't sharp. It was deep, like the stillness of water. Tu Na's gaze softened. "It's over now," she said quietly. "We all did what we thought was right." They spoke of trust, of the fragile threads that had frayed but somehow endured. Together, they decided to keep certain truths from Johnny's mother, not from malice, but from mercy. When they rose, something unspoken had shifted. The air felt lighter, the shadows shorter. Johnny glanced at Alex as they left the table. There was a quiet knowing in his look, as if he had seen more in Alex's eyes than words would ever admit. The day was sliding into a cooler shade when Johnny pulled a folded photograph from his pocket. Its edges were worn, the image inside faded, but still clear enough. The face of a young girl, her eyes wide with a kind of innocence that time could never erase. "This is my sister," Johnny said quietly, his voice low. "She disappeared years ago." He looked at Tu Na, the question already forming in his gaze. "Why? Why is her picture in your hands?" Tu Na's fingers trembled as she touched the photograph. Her brow furrowed. "I don't remember how I got it," she admitted. "It's from when I was very young. Maybe there's something I've forgotten." The orchard around them grew still, as though even the branches were holding their breath. Alex stood silently between them, sensing the fragile thread of memory they were tugging at. There was no anger in the air, only the quiet urgency of truth pressing its way into the light. Johnny exhaled slowly. If you have this picture, then there's a connection. Maybe something from before any of us knew each other. His eyes turned to Alex. We need to start over. Talk to your mother-in-law, the nun who raised you both. Somewhere in there is the piece we're missing. Tu Na nodded, not with certainty, but with resolve. Then we'll find it, she said. It wasn't only about the photograph anymore. It was about unfinished stories, the kind that haunt until the last page is finally turned. And now, the three of them had agreed they would turn that page together. They walked back toward the gate, the dirt path glowing faintly under the fading sun. Johnny's steps slowed, and he glanced sideways at Alex. You care for her, he said, not as a question, but as a truth already measured. Alex didn't answer right away. The weight of years of shared silences and unspoken feelings seemed to gather in the space between them. Johnny's voice pressed on, steady and unflinching. Opportunities like this, they don't come twice. If you feel it, tell her. Don't let hesitation take it from you. The words struck deeper than Alex expected. His mind flickered back to the hospital. The doctor's grave face, the moment he thought he might lose her forever. He remembered the suffocating press of fear in his chest and the flood of relief when both Tu Na and the child had survived. That day had taught him something. Love is not something to postpone. By the time they reached the roadside, Johnny clapped him on the shoulder. She's a good woman, Alex. More than that, she's survived things most wouldn't. She deserves to know she's loved. After Johnny left, Alex stood alone, the evening air cooling around him. Beyond the hills, the farm lights would be flickering on, steady against the night. And in that quiet moment, he knew what he would do tomorrow. He would not go empty-handed, and he would not let his feelings remain a secret any longer. The shop bell chimed softly as Alex stepped inside. The air was cool, carrying a faint scent of polished wood and silver. Glass cases lined the walls, each holding treasures that shimmered in the light like captured memories. His reflection wavered in the glass as he leaned closer, eyes scanning over rings and pendants, until one caught him. A simple band of gold, its curve unbroken, and beside it, a delicate necklace that seemed almost alive in the soft glow. They're beautiful, the shopkeeper said, placing them gently on a velvet tray. Alex picked up the ring, turning it between his fingers, imagining it on Tu Na's hand. It wasn't just metal and stone. It was the shape of the love he had carried in silence for so long. He bought them both. The weight of the small box in his pocket felt heavier than gold. Outside, the street was drenched in the last light of day, the colors of dusk deepening into night. As he walked, Alex rehearsed the words in his mind, sentences that sounded certain until he imagined Tu Na's gaze, and suddenly his throat tightened. Would she say yes? Would she see the truth behind the gesture? By the time he reached the quiet path leading back to the farm, he realized the answer didn't matter as much as the act itself. The choice was no longer between speaking or staying silent. It was between giving his heart its voice or letting fear smother it forever. Tomorrow, the gifts would leave his pocket, and his truth would leave his chest. And that's where today's story leaves us, with Alex holding the ring and necklace, his heart pounding, knowing that tomorrow could be the day everything changes, or nothing does. Sometimes, love isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about having the courage to create one. So, what do you think? Will Tu Na accept his feelings after all they've endured? Or will the past still stand between them? Alex's life takes a dramatic turn when Tu Na, the woman he silently loves, faces a life-threatening pregnancy. The doctor forces him into an impossible choice: save Tu Na or save their unborn child. Refusing to give up, Alex prays and fights for both lives, and against all odds, they survive. With Tu Na's return to the farm, she finds peace in the rhythm of the land and the quiet strength of Alex by her side. Yet secrets from the past surface, including a mysterious photograph linking Tu Na to Johnny's missing sister. As truth slowly unfolds, Johnny urges Alex to confess the love he's hidden for years. With a ring and necklace in his pocket, Alex prepares to risk everything, knowing tomorrow could change their lives forever.